With the United Kingdom recently announcing that it is putting an end to the long-standing tradition of the non-domiciled tax residence regime, are there any alternatives left? This is what we're going to dive into in this video. Hi, my name is Javier. I'm a strategy associate here at Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs go where they're treated best, and that involves more often than not, understanding the different tax regimes that are available, which include non-domicile tax regimes. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has recently announced that it'll put an end to the 200-year-old tradition of the non-domicile tax regime. So to give a bit of historical context, in the UK, this started out around the time of the French Revolution. A lot of French aristocrats and noblemen were actually fleeing, obviously, the bloodbath of the revolution, and many of them ended up in the British Isles, where, in agreement with the Crown, they essentially achieved a very beneficial method of taxation. Since they were non-domiciled, they were able to only pay tax on foreign income if it was remitted to the UK. Now, to understand exactly how the system works, we have to understand that under British law, there is a distinction between domicile and residence, which is not always exactly evident for most people who tend to use the term interchangeably. So the domicile of a person is usually their center of vital interest. It is their homeland. It is a place where they have a stronger connection than simply having a house there. The place of residence, on the other hand, is literally, I live in this place. This is my physical place of residence. So as I mentioned before, for most people, residence and domicile are basically the same place. However, for the legislation and the laws of the UK until next year, and for some other countries which we'll dive into in just a sec, it is possible to separate those two concepts. Now, what is the result of this? If you manage to relocate to a country that has this distinction, and you're able to claim non-domiciled status, meaning that you live there, you're a tax resident, you spend your time there, your family's there, your home is there, but you're able to prove that your permanent home is somewhere else, that your homeland is where you intend to return, where you intend to basically have your final resting place in many cases, then in that case, you'll be able to access the non-domicile tax regime because you'll only be considered as a resident, but not somebody who's domiciled in that country. Having given this introduction, let's take a look at which countries still apply this and what alternatives do we have to the United Kingdom when it comes to non-dom taxation. So if we take a look at it from a geographical perspective, the closest location available to you would be the Republic of Ireland. So right next to basically the UK and right next to the British Isles. Ireland is a fantastic place, republic, one of the freest countries in the world, and it is a place where the non-dom regime is alive and well. Essentially, in Ireland, you can relocate to the country and you would only pay tax on your locally sourced income, provided you are non-dom. Your foreign income, meaning foreign dividends, foreign interest, foreign rental income, business income from businesses that are legitimately controlled and managed and run offshore, all that would remain untaxed, provided it is not remitted to Ireland. So what is remittance and how should we understand it? Well, the most basic way to understand it is if I'm just sending money to an Irish bank account, right? Let's say I, Javier, move over to Ireland, I establish a home there, and I send money from my foreign bank account to my Irish bank account. That is the most obvious case of remittance. However, there are some cases that are not as evident, and you should definitely focus on to make sure that you're optimizing your taxes as much as possible as a non-dom in Ireland. For example, let's say I go to, I don't know, the Dubai Auto Show, right? And I buy a Ferrari, beautiful car, and I bring it over to Ireland and I'm enjoying the car in Ireland. That may also be considered remittance of income to Ireland and therefore fully taxable. Other examples may include, for example, simply using my foreign credit card, right? Let's say, for example, you're very successful entrepreneur. Let's say you're watching this video from California, you're moving over to Ireland, you want that European lifestyle, maybe you want to reconnect with your ancestry, potentially work on a European passport. You move over to Ireland and you keep using your US credit card. Maybe you have that Bank of America travel rewards or something, and you're using it because of the great points, or you held onto that Amex and you're using it in Ireland. Well, that will still count as remittance. So you do have to be careful on exactly what can be considered remittance and what is not considered remittance to make sure that you're properly optimizing your taxes in Ireland. Now, Ireland does come with a few challenges. There are a few exceptions here and there that don't fully fit into the non-dom tax regime, most notably real estate investment trusts and certain ETFs. So it is important to consider that if you're going to be taking advantage of the non-dom regime in Ireland, it is very important to work with a qualified tax professional. These videos are made for educational purposes and are made for you to have a reference, but they are not official tax advice, and it's important to keep that in mind. Now, moving further south, away from Ireland, we have other options in Europe, basically in the Mediterranean. So the option that comes most to mind is the beautiful island of Malta. Again, Malta has a legal system that is a bit mixed, so it does have a lot of civil law influence, but it also has a tremendous amount of British law influence, from which the concept of domicile versus residence comes from, and it is also applied in Malta. So essentially, Malta has a very similar regime to Ireland, but Malta took a few additional steps to even make the regime more friendly when it comes to taxes. So same thing applies. If your permanent home, if your domicile is outside of Malta, and you have the intention of returning to that permanent home, to your homeland at some point in the future, then you can claim non-dom status in Malta. It is important to consider that in both Ireland and Malta, nationality or citizenship is not taken into consideration when domicile is determined. So if you're somehow or for some reason interested in obtaining Maltese citizenship by exception, or in naturalizing as an Irish citizen, it is theoretically possible to have the citizenship, get a great passport, and still be a non-domiciled tax resident. It is a bit trickier in Ireland because to obtain citizenship, you do have to essentially declare that you have the intent of making Ireland your permanent home. Malta is maybe a bit more flexible on that ground, but definitely possible in both cases. So going back to Malta. Malta essentially will leave your foreign income alone. If, however, you have foreign income that amounts to 35,000 euros or more, then essentially Malta will charge you a flat tax of around 5,000 euros. In some cases, it can be 15, depending on the residence permit you have, but generally speaking, 5,000 euros if you relocate there, and then anything on top of that will depend on money remitted to Malta. Obviously, same as Ireland, if you're generating local income in Malta, meaning you have a business in Malta, you're running a business from Malta, you're earning a salary in Malta, that's fully taxable under regular Maltese rates. Foreign income, again, not taxable unless it is remitted to Malta. The same remittance rules basically apply as to Ireland. If you're bringing money into a Maltese bank account, if you're using a foreign credit card, you're buying goods and you're bringing them into Malta to enjoy them in Malta, all that basically counts as remittance. Now, Malta did add something very nice, which for me is really the cherry on top. And guys, if the crypto guys, the stock guys, if you're listening to me, this is the big one. This is for you. So let's say you're in crypto, you're having a fantastic year, you've 10x that crypto, that exotic coin, you're ready to cash out, and let's say you're a Malta non-dom, where you're in luck because capital gains are tax exempt even if remitted to Malta. So again, crypto guys, stock traders, if you're out there, Malta is definitely a choice to consider. And then the last option that we could take into consideration would be Cyprus, and I mean the last option in Europe. So Cyprus is a bit more exotic. It's further to the east, so it does have more of a Turkish, Eastern Mediterranean vibe, as opposed to Malta and Ireland that are more Western. In many regards. So Cyprus has a non-dom tax regime that is limited in time. So similar to the UK soon to disappear non-dom, Cyprus did place a limit, which in this case is 17 years. So 17 out of the last 20 years. That is the maximum amount of time you can actually take advantage of Cyprus's non-dom regime. But Cyprus's non-dom regime is by far the most tax-friendly. So in the case of Cyprus, you don't even have to worry about remittance-based taxation. If you're non-dom, essentially dividend income, interest income, capital gains other than those associated to Cypriot property are completely tax-free, regardless of whether they are earned in Cyprus or earned outside of Cyprus. So if you're really looking for aggressive tax savings and you don't mind living in a more exotic place, in a less Western place, then Cyprus might definitely be an option for you. On top of that, similar to, in some cases, Malta, you do have an option where you only need to spend about 60 days in Cyprus per year to claim tax residence. So obviously, tax residence is a whole other topic, and well, I do encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay tuned. We'll probably have a video on that pretty soon. But just to summarize and to keep to the basics on that that, which is a bit out of the scope of the video, 60 days per year, you can be a Cypriot tax resident, travel the world. So if you're running a business globally, if your dream is to travel the world with your significant other or maybe with a business partner or whatever it may be, then Cyprus is definitely an option you could look into. Cyprus is also part of the European Union, similar to Malta and Ireland. So in that case, you would basically have similar benefits when it comes to Schengen area travel. The last country on this list may come as a surprise because it's not usually present when it comes to non-domicile tax option discussions. But I thought it was interesting to bring it up, especially since the UK is sadly departing the non-dom club, as I like to call it. And well, this mystery guest is actually the Caribbean island of Barbados. So Barbados, formerly part of the British Empire, and up until recently actually even had the British monarch as the head of state. I believe the last head of state was the late Queen Elizabeth II. So basically, just as in the case of Malta, they've imported a lot of British laws and a lot of British rules, which means that the concept of the distinction between domicile and residence is also present in Barbados. Barbados has a system whereby you can basically relocate, and very similar to Ireland, essentially, a foreign source income that is not remitted to Barbados, and we already explained more or less what remittance is tax-free in Barbados. In addition to that, Barbados does not tax capital gains. So again, if you're the crypto guys out there, the stock guys, if you like Europe, then Malta's your option. If you want the Caribbean, if you want that convenient time zone, if you're like day trading on the New York Stock Exchange, Barbados may definitely be an interesting place. In addition to that, globally speaking, this covers more or less basically all of the countries that I've mentioned on this list today. They tend to have good treaty networks. So Ireland, Malta, Cyprus, and Barbados all have tax treaties with the US. So if you're planning on having an aggressive US investment portfolio, dividend-paying stock, bonds, etc., it might be an interesting place to be. They also tend to have tax treaties with countries like Canada, the UK, and other European countries. So from a tax perspective, it can be very beneficial. You can potentially claim the tax benefits included in those treaties because you're legitimately a tax resident, but at the same time, you're under a special regime that allows you to minimize those taxes as much as possible. This was it, essentially, non-dom options for global investors and entrepreneurs. I want to give a special shout out to our US audience, and again, because I'm sorry guys, US, you always have these different rules. As you know, you're taxed based on citizenship, so being in a non-dom country might be very interesting, especially because if you relocate there on your foreign income, usually speaking, you are only liable for US tax, and you can basically legally avoid and choose when to pay tax to your country of residence, meaning that generally speaking, you'll only have to worry about the US, which is pretty good. The US already imposes such a high burden on you that the best we could do is have you relocate to a country that has a lot of benefits and it doesn't add on any additional headaches, right? So that was basically it. If you want to learn more about non-domiciled regimes, you want to stay up to date with the latest news, like what recently happened with the UK non-dom, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, visit our website, nomadcapitalist.com, to understand and to know how we can best serve and help you.